Welcome to the Bending the Bracket podcast. Here are your hosts, Ben Madison and Lane Smith.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Bending the Bracket. I'm your host, Ben Madison, alongside my co-host, Lane Smith. Lane, how are you doing, sir?
Doing great this morning. How are you?
I'm good, and we're just gonna get right into it. So, last night, Thursday night football, the Cleveland Browns hosted the Cincinnati Bengals, and I don't know a time in my life when I ever would have looked forward to a Bengals-Browns matchup, but that game did not disappoint me. And while the Browns pretty much dominated the game as far as the team goes, I was so impressed with Joe Burrow's performance. He got knocked around like a rag doll, and he was still getting back up, making key throws, and I just think he's going to be such a special player in this league. And Lane, what are your thoughts on as far as how Burrow played on his primetime debut?
I loved Burrow last night. I was so impressed with his poise in the pocket. Under pressure, he never got rattled. And he's running for his life. He's got a non-existent offensive line. Despite all the obstacles, he really looked good. 316 yards. He threw 61 times, which is unbelievable.
Yeah, that's insane.
That should never happen. But with that team around him, I don't think he has much choice.
Yeah, and it's very interesting you say that because Zach Taylor is clearly, he didn't even have training wheels on him from the get-go. He's letting him go. He's letting him do the thing. He knows that Zach Taylor knows what he has. He knows he has a team that needs a lot of work. The defense is a disaster. The offensive line isn't much better. And he's basically there to save the franchise, which is a tall order for a rookie to do. But so far through 2 weeks, he's impressed the hell out of me. I'm not going to lie. And I had a couple of questions as far as how he would perform in the NFL. I knew he had the talent. I was just worried sick about him going to a franchise like the Cincinnati Bengals. But so far, he's played well. And I fully anticipate that he's going to win some games for that team this year that they have no business winning.
Absolutely. Could not agree more. That was very evident last night. And you can make an argument they should be 2-0. Now, I really think they probably would have lost that game last night regardless. Cleveland looked like clearly the better team. But at least 1-1. They should have won the game last Sunday.
Yeah, they should have definitely beat the Chargers. And last night, they had their opportunities. But overall, I just think that Cleveland is a much better football team from top to bottom. And the fact that that game was ever in reach was a testament to Joe Burrow and how special of a player he is.
Absolutely, but he's got no one around him. I mean, he's got no running game to speak of. 68 yards rushing last night compared to Cleveland's 215 yards. I mean, he's just got nothing to work with. No offensive line, no run game. He's got one receiver that's injury prone. Tyler Boyd looks good. If that continues the rest of the year, that he might turn out to be a star.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And there's really nowhere to go for the Bengals but up. But I think if you're asking me if they've found their guy, they've found their franchise quarterback for the next 10 to 15 years, I'm going to say, without a doubt, absolutely.
Oh, yes, very much so. The question is, will he stay in Cincinnati? I mean, I don't think I would stay in Cincinnati. That franchise has never done anything or shown any ability to want to build around their quarterback. Andy Dalton was there for 10 years. They never did anything to put pieces around him.
That's a very good point. And there was a time in the NFL when that wouldn't even be a question, right? You get drafted by a team, you're pretty much their guy. And now with some player mobility, specifically at the quarterback position, to me it adds a layer of excitement for fans because you see players like Phillip Rivers going to a different team and Cam Newton and others. And what you're seeing is, if the franchise doesn't take care of me, I'm going to go somewhere else. And that's more of a mentality of an NBA player. And that's the thing I really like to see it spilling over into the NFL because it makes for an exciting season year after year. Talking about the other side of that game, now the Cleveland Browns, it was definitely a get-right game for them. I thought they looked good. I thought it was a make-it-or-break-it game for Baker Mayfield as far as not wanting to start 0-2, a national televised game. And I thought he played very well. He didn't force things that he normally does, outside of that one pretty bad interception in the second half. But he played an efficient football game, a little over 200 yards passing. I think it was a good game. It was a good game for the team overall. If you ask me how the Browns can get better, how they can get into the playoffs, that's the formula. Run the ball with a 1-2 punch of Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb. They are a power running football team. They can play defense, power run, and give Baker Mayfield the throws in key situations, play off the play action. That's how that team succeeds.
Yes, I agree with you, but I would also say you got to get Odell Beckham more involved. They got him involved last night. He had 4 receptions for 74 yards and a touchdown. That guy's a playmaker if you let him go, but they've so far not shown the ability to be able to incorporate him in this offense.
I agree with that, and I think that he needs to be more involved, but I also believe he needs to understand his role. And I believe that this team may just now be figuring out that they are a run-first team. And look, that's a hard thing for them to come to grips with when you have Jarvis Landry and you have OBJ and you have Baker Mayfield, who in college threw the ball all over the yard. And he still has a good arm. I mean, he made some really good throws last night that impressed me. So I don't think that the book is written on him yet. I think he can grow, but I think instead of running the offense through Baker Mayfield, they need to run the offense through the running game.
Right, and I like Baker Mayfield more than most, but the one thing the Cleveland Browns have done that, for example, the Bengals have not done is they have built around Baker Mayfield. They've gotten defense, they built up their offensive line, so he's got protection up front, he's got a secondary he can count on, and the Cleveland Browns, I think, are a playoff team. They're easily, in my book, 10-6.
And I agree. And going into last night, I had my doubts. I like I said, I think it was a get-right game for them. I had my questions. If they were to go out there and lose to the Cincinnati Bengals or look flat, or if Baker Mayfield was to look flat, that would have really concerned me. But the fact that they went out there and they played good ball, based on watching the game, they pretty much dominated the Bengals. The fact that the score was 35-30 is directly related to Joe Burrow. Had it been Andy Dalton, had it been any other quarterback,
absolutely,
it would have been 35-10. So it was a get-right game, and I look for them to do good things. I don't take away too much from week 1 against Baltimore because it's the Baltimore Ravens. They make everyone look silly. So I agree with you. I think that the Cleveland Browns are probably a 10-win team this year, and I think they definitely get in the playoffs.
Right, and I think it was a get-right game for the Browns, not a get-right game for the Bengals.
Right, and I don't think the Bengals are going to have a get-right game this year because, like we've discussed, the franchise is in disarray. And like I said, Joe Burrow is going to win them a few games they have no business winning. They're probably a 1-15 team without Burrow. They may go 5-11, and that's going to be directly related to Joe Burrow.
Oh, yeah, if this team wins 5 games, you'd be ecstatic as a fan base.
Absolutely. So let's move on over to the other games that are coming up Sunday and Monday night. And I want to highlight a few of the games that I think are really important games moving forward. Let's start with the Carolina Panthers and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And to me, the line on this game of being Tampa minus 9.5 is absurd. I know Tampa's a little bit better team. They have Tom Brady. They're coming off the loss. It's their first home game. So I anticipate that they'll win the game. I think this is massive disrespect to the Carolina Panthers. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no doubt. Carolina is not Carolina of last year. They look good. Joe Brady had that offense rolling on Sunday. Teddy Bridgewater, he threw for over 200 yards, I think almost 300 yards. And that's amazing because last year with the Saints, I don't think he ever eclipsed 200 yards except for maybe one game. So first game out the gate, he does that. And they got Christian McCaffrey in that backfield. I think Carolina can come close to winning this game, but I do expect Tampa to pull it out.
Yeah, I think Tampa wins the ball game as well. I think Tom Brady plays a lot better than he did last week. Overall, he wasn't terrible last week, but I think it's going to give him and the receivers another week to get on the same page. And so I think you'll see Tampa play better, but Before I saw the line on this game, my first thought was maybe 4.5, 5 points, but to go 9.5, I think there's no doubt you have to pick Carolina if you're betting.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You're stealing picking Carolina because they're going to cover that easily.
Watch the Tampa Bay Buccaneers win 42-3.
Well, it's
Oh,
usually
of
the way it
course.
goes. Absolutely.
Of
Yeah.
course. I want to move over to the Denver Broncos at the Pittsburgh Steelers. This game is fascinating to me. Again, the line's a little high to me. Now, Denver did lose, and had the kicking game for Tennessee not been a disaster, Denver would have probably lost that game by 10 to 12 points. But I still think Denver has some young talent, and to me, this is almost a trap game for Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh coming off a good week one victory on the road against the Giants. Big Ben getting back into form. And overall, I just think that this could be a trap game for Pittsburgh. What are your thoughts on that?
I like Pittsburgh in this. Denver, I agree with you. Denver, I think, is up and coming. They got a good young squad there, and Melvin Gordon's going to make that team better. But Pittsburgh really surprised me Monday night. I did not expect that kind of performance. Roethlisberger looked like Roethlisberger, and at that age, you never know what he's going to come out looking like, the way his body is built. I think Pittsburgh's going to have a good night Sunday, but I don't know. Denver, I think Denver's a good team, but I don't know how good.
Yeah, I really like Drew Lock. I think he's a young and talented quarterback who can do some special things. He's going to make mistakes. He has a defensive based head coach, which we see around the league. A lot of these young quarterbacks, they do better with an offensive minded head coach. Sean McVay in Los Angeles, Kyle Shanahan in San Francisco, Matt Nagy in Chicago, which for what it's worth, Trubisky did play better in week one. I'm still not a Trubisky guy, but overall, I think Drew Lock does have potential, and they've got some great young receivers in Denver. So in this game, I don't know that I would pick Denver to win the game, but I'm liking them a lot in the spread. Moving over now to the Philadelphia Eagles hosting the Los Angeles Rams, and to me, this is a really important game for the Philadelphia Eagles. They go out in week one and they just drop one they should have had to the Washington football team. The Rams, of course, coming off a good home opening win in their new stadium in Los Angeles against the Cowboys. We're going to see how good this Rams team really is. Going to the East Coast on the road. This game is pretty much knotted up according to Vegas. There's no line on this game, so it's a pick 'em game. What are your thoughts on this one?
This is a must-win game for the Philadelphia Eagles, and I don't know if I've ever said that in week two, but they got to win this football game. Dropping that game to Washington was an embarrassment. Philly has to win this game. There's no question about it. They got to have this game.
And I think it's not just that they lost to Washington, it's
Exactly.
how they lost. They jump up to a 17-0 lead. They look good. They look exactly like I thought they would. Going into that game, I said, "Oh, Philly's going to win this game by at least 2 touchdowns." Then to just crumble and allow 27 straight points. That shows you how quickly Ron Rivera has already changed the culture in Washington. But for Philadelphia, I'm not going to say it's a must-win game. If they're in the NFC West or if they're in the NFC South, absolutely. But I still have massive question marks about the NFC East, and we're going to see what Dallas does against Atlanta. But Philadelphia could easily drop this game, be 0-2, and still be very alive for the division. Now, I think you would have larger concerns about if they can't win either one of these games, how's their season going to go in its entirety? But we're going to see how this goes. I think it's a very important game. For the Rams, it's still an important game, even though they're 1-0. And the reason I say that is the division they play in is brutal. You have arguably the worst team in their division, the Arizona Cardinals, who are rising fast. You have Russell Wilson and the Seahawks. You have Shanahan and the 49ers. It's going to take 12 or 13 wins to win that division over there. So if the Rams want to get back to competing for that division, they've got to get off to a fast start. So I think this is an important game for them as well.
I think the Rams are going to win this game. Honestly, if I'm looking at both teams, I just think the Rams are a better team. I just think Philadelphia needs this game coming off of last week.
They very much do need this game, and I believe Carson Wentz needs to go out there and play like he did when he was a MVP candidate in 2017. He has so much talent, but he seems to always make the mistake at the most crucial time. He needs to have a good game. He needs to not turn the football over. It's their home opener. They need this win in a bad way. So we'll see how that game goes. This next game is very interesting to me because it's two teams that have potential, had expectations going into this season. The Minnesota Vikings, of course, a playoff team last year, had the upset win in New Orleans. On the other side of that game, the Indianapolis Colts, Phillip Rivers arriving, Frank Reich still building that team up, and expectations there, especially when you look at their division. There's no clear-cut favorite in that division, so that division's there for the taking. Both of these teams coming off a Week 1 loss, and I think this is a very important game for both of these teams. Minnesota losing the opener to Green Bay, who always seems to have their number, and Indianapolis, of course, with the upsetting loss to Gardner Minshew and the Jacksonville Jaguars in Week 1. Who do you think needs this game more, and why?
There's no question Indy has to have this game. And thanks for bringing up the Minnesota game in the playoffs last year. I'm still getting over that.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah,
you're welcome.
I think Indy needs this game. Phillip Rivers. I think Phillip Rivers, he's trying to get one last go at it, and he's got to look better than he did last week. But now they've lost their running back for the year, and I don't know what that team's going to be able to do solely relying on Phillip Rivers.
I think you're right. I've always been a big Phillip Rivers fan.
Me too.
But I think his time has passed. Last week he threw the ball all over the yard, which I honestly didn't expect him to do in Indianapolis. I thought they would use him a little bit differently. It was essentially a continuation of him in his San Diego / Los Angeles days, where it was Phillip Rivers throws the ball all over the yard. He throws the crucial pick, and there's the ball game, another close loss. And he took that right to Indianapolis with him. So that was kind of disappointing to see. I hope they do well this season. I'm going to go the other way on that game. I think it's a must-win for the Minnesota Vikings. When you look at the NFC, it is a tougher conference from top to bottom. You have the best two teams, arguably, in the AFC in Baltimore and Kansas City. But the NFC is just a logjam. And there's about 8 or 9 teams who are more or less on the same level. And so what's going to separate these teams is winning games like this game for Minnesota. So I don't trust Kirk Cousins any farther than I can throw him. When you look at his numbers are better than his play. And that is evident in the fact that, not to burst your bubble, but to bring up that playoff game again last year, you would have thought Kirk Cousins won the Super Bowl the way he reacted in a wild card playoff victory. So the ceiling for Minnesota, you're not going to convince me that they're going to be a Super Bowl contender with Kirk Cousins at quarterback. I just don't ever see that happening. But at the end of the day, they want to get into the playoffs. That roster's still good enough. 5 of their 11 defensive players from last year not playing currently. But even with that, I still think that they are definitely a wild card team. I think, based on what we saw to Green Bay last week, that's going to be the Packers division yet again. It's week 1. We don't know, But if Aaron Rodgers plays the way he played last week on a fairly consistent basis this season, then Minnesota's best shot is a wild card game. Going on over to Dallas now, where this is another critical game between two 0-1 teams. The Atlanta Falcons are going down to Dallas for the Dallas Cowboys season opener. And the line on this game is Dallas -4, which I think is probably about right. I may have gone -5. But your thoughts on this game?
I don't think anybody expects Atlanta to be good. Dallas, with that roster, they've got to win this game. Coming off of last week, if you start at 0-2 in Dallas, it is going to start crumbling and crumbling fast. And that fan base is going to get really impatient, and it's going to be tough the rest of the way.
Yeah, that's a fan base that really always has unrealistic expectations. I was talking to a coworker, or was it you that were talking to a coworker that was saying 14-2?
Yeah, 14-2, which is totally unrealistic. But I think Dallas is easily an 11-5 team if they can put it together. This roster is too good. Now, I know there's questions on defense. You've lost Van Der Esch, but I think they can overcome that based on what they still have.
With the loss of Van Der Esch, also the loss of Sean Lee before the season even starts, which is, color me shocked, right? Overall, I think that they're going to miss those defenders. They were already thin. Their defense was already a big question mark for me. Their secondary still is a big question mark for me, and now linebacker as well. Again, last week, 3 points in the second half. It's the same script over and over again for the Cowboys, and we're going to see if Dak Prescott can take that next step. Personally, I don't think he can.
I think if you're Dak Prescott and you're a $40 million quarterback, this is when you got to step up. Your defense is down. You got to put the team on your back, and you got to go down the field and get them a win.
Exactly. On the other side of that game, the Atlanta Falcons, who I picked as a dark horse playoff team this year, they're in a very tough division, but I still think that they have a lot of talent, and I believe that they can win this game. I think most people think it's a foregone conclusion. The Cowboys are going home. The Cowboys are going to win this game. It's going to be a get-right game for them, and I'm on the other side of that. I really think that the Falcons can go out of Dallas with a victory. And like you said, if the Cowboys start 0-2, it'll depend on what Philadelphia does. Because if Philadelphia and Dallas both start 0-2, then the narrative is just going to be, well, again, it's the crappiest division in football. They're both 0-2. The first one to win 7 games takes it. And if you just don't want to see that as an NFL fan. You don't want to see these really bad divisions. So overall, I think that the Cowboys, they're in the hot seat right now.
No, they are. There's no question. And Atlanta, they got a firepower on offense, and I think their offense is certainly going to score points because I think, as you mentioned, the Dallas secondary is already beat up, and so they're having troubles defensively. So I think Atlanta will have a good game offensively. And if you're a fantasy football owner, I mean, I'm starting Julio Jones, I'm starting Calvin Ridley, every receiver they got because Ryan's going to spread the ball around.
Oh, absolutely. I look for the Falcons to just throw the ball all over the yard. And it's really going to be up to Dak to play catch up and to keep that pace going. It's going to be a high-scoring game.
Absolutely.
I don't think there's any way this is a 21-17 game.
No, I think we're looking at 38-30, 38-31, somewhere in that area.
Absolutely. In the 30s, if not 40s. I think this is a very, very high-scoring game. It'll be a good game to watch, for sure.
It'll be fun. If you like offense, it'll be a lot of fun.
Absolutely. Watch it be a 7-3 ball game.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how it goes, right? Let's move out to Arizona now, where they're going to have their home game against the Washington football team. And Arizona, a 6.5-point favorite in this game. This line surprised me as well. Arizona is definitely on the rise, but to me, Washington is too. And I suppose that last week could have been an outlier, and they may be the same old Washington football team. But I think they have a chance to make this a close game. I like Arizona to win the game, but I think this is more of a 3-point ball game. What do you think?
It could be. It really depends on what Washington team shows up. If it's a team from last week, I think certainly they keep it close. Rivera is a great coach, and he's going to have this team ready to play. But I don't know if Dwayne Haskins is the starting quarterback or the franchise quarterback that they need.
Yeah, I agree. I think the book is definitely still out on Dwayne Haskins. He played pretty solidly last week. We'll see what Rivera can get out of him. They're going to be more of a defensive and run-based team. If he can just keep them from losing games, I think they'll be okay. So let's move on down to Houston now, where the Texans coming off a very ugly loss against the Kansas City Chiefs. And again, it's the Chiefs. Just like you can't put too much into the Browns' Week 1 loss against Baltimore, you can't put too much into Houston's Week 1 loss against the Chiefs. But at any rate, it doesn't get any easier for them because now they have the Baltimore Ravens. And this line is Baltimore -7. It's lower than I thought it would be. I really thought this was going to be a Baltimore by 10, Baltimore by 12 line. What do you think?
Absolutely. I'm taking Baltimore -7 all day long. I think they're going to blow out Houston. Houston did not look good last week, but further than that, just exposed their problems on offense. Watson is excellent, but he's got nobody around him. The receivers are not as good as what they've had in recent years. And Will Fuller, we don't know if he's going to stay healthy or not. So I think Baltimore all day long. Lamar Jackson will have a big day, and I'm picking Baltimore -7.
Yeah, I think that's a very safe bet. And while I don't think Baltimore is going to go 16-0 like some are predicting, they looked really good last week. And I think when you take a look at last night, how the Cleveland Browns played last night, Cleveland's a solid football team. They're not as bad as we thought or we had feared after week 1. So if Baltimore plays that way throughout the season, I say 14-2, 15-1. They're going to have a really good season. And it's just going to come down to the playoffs for them. You know, when you reach the point where you're already a made man in the regular season, like Lamar Jackson is, that's a really good place to be. The problem is so much playoff pressure now. You know, the Ravens could literally go 16-0, and Lamar Jackson could win another MVP. And the only question would be, that's great. Now do it in the playoffs. And so that's a really good and a really bad place to be at the same time. We'll see how he handles that pressure this year. You know, while we can't predict the future, I would be just absolutely shocked if the Baltimore Ravens missed the playoffs. So I think they're a deadlock for the playoffs. They may be a deadlock for the 1 seed, and that 1 seed is going to be important this season because there's only one bye. And so Kansas City and Baltimore are going to battle for that, and I think whoever gets it, it's going to be a huge advantage. But in this game, I like the Ravens to roll. I think that Houston will play better. I think that Deshaun Watson will do what he does best. But like you said, there's too many issues with the Houston Texans. And I like Baltimore to win this game at least by 10.
I'm really not as sold on Baltimore as most people are. I think Baltimore's going to struggle this year. I think when they start making Lamar Jackson throw the ball, I think that's where you're going to find out what Baltimore really is.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to see that because I was not a big Lamar Jackson believer coming out of Louisville, but he has proved me wrong on every level, and he's gotten better, and he's worked on the things that he needed to work on, and he's a smart guy. He knows that people are going to adjust and figure out how to slow him down on the ground. And so I believe he put a lot of work in this offseason and learning accuracy down the field. So we're going to see how that goes, but I think he's going to be much improved in his passing game this season.
And he's got to be because these defenses, they figured out how to stop a running quarterback. So
Yes,
they're going to
do.
have
Yes,
to
they do.
rely on his arm, and he's going to have to show the ability to win the game on his passing ability and not his legs.
Okay, a couple more games we're going to preview here, and this is the big boy. This is the one that I cannot wait for, and it's Cam and the Patriots visiting Russell Wilson and the Seattle Seahawks. The line on this game is Seattle -3.5, which is actually a smaller line than I anticipated. The Patriots coming off an impressive Week 1 victory, and the Seattle Seahawks doing the same. The difference is the Patriots were at home against the Miami Dolphins. The Seattle Seahawks were cross-country in Atlanta, and while the Falcons are the Falcons, it's still an impressive game, and Russell Wilson played brilliantly. I mean, if you pretty much look up the dictionary definition of a perfect quarterback performance, that's Russell Wilson in Week 1. This is going to be a good game. It's going to be a chess match between Russell Wilson and Bill Belichick.
So this is going to be interesting. I like Seattle to win this game by 5 points or more. I think they're just a superior football team. The Patriots have a lot of question marks, especially on defense. Cam's going to keep it interesting. He'll keep them in it. But Seattle, the way they looked last week, I mean, who's going to pick against Seattle right now?
It's definitely hard to pick against Seattle. I think what's going to be interesting to see is, can the Patriots run the football? Because that's clearly going to be their goal. Not with Cam necessarily. It will be with Cam, but everyone knows that's coming. Can they run the football? Can they go to Seattle and can they get 160, 170, even 180 yards on the ground, take the ball out of Russell Wilson's hands, limit his possessions, and win that way? And I think there's a decent chance they can do that. Like you said, I would pick Seattle if I'm laying money on this game, especially with that lower line of 3.5. But I wouldn't be shocked in the least to see New England go in there and win this game.
I would think, I mean, if you're New England, you got to win this game, I think. Winning last week is one thing, but to start out 2-0 with the defense is missing 6 guys, that would be remarkable, and it would show Belichick is still the best in the game, and there's nobody even close.
Absolutely. And I think win or lose, if they go out there and compete in Seattle and they lose a close one, then I think you still look at this Bill Belichick performance and say, wow, he's really doing some good stuff.
Right, and I think it puts to bed the conversation of, Tom Brady or Bill Belichick. I think it's clearly Belichick.
One more game to preview, and that's the Monday night matchup where the New Orleans Saints minus Michael Thomas go out to the Las Vegas Raiders in their debut in Las Vegas. This has trap game for the New Orleans Saints written all over it, in my opinion. When you look and Michael Thomas is out, they're going on the road after a big home win. To me, I like the Raiders' chances in this one. What say you?
I think if Thomas is out, the Raiders have a chance. If Thomas plays, I think the Saints win. I think it'll be close. I don't like the line of -6. I think it's a 3-point game. Michael Thomas, as of this morning, he felt fantastic in practice yesterday, and they're considering putting him in on Monday night. So if that happens, I think it's a good night for New Orleans, especially in a dome. But I like the Raiders. I think they're doing a lot of good things, and I think they're a good football team, but I think New Orleans is better.
I think New Orleans is definitely better, and it is going to come down to Michael Thomas, and we'll just see how it goes. It's going to come down to Michael Thomas. It's going to come down to Derek Carr and how he plays. If he plays, Derek Carr has a high ceiling and a low floor, and if he is closer to his higher ceiling, then I think Vegas has a chance. Overall, though, I would say that New Orleans has a much better chance of winning this game.
Derek Carr infuriates me because he has shown the ability to be this all-star quarterback, and then he can come out the next week and just be a dud. So it's really the tale of two worlds. You don't know what quarterback you're going to get week to week.
We're now going to move into the segment we call Pick'em, where we're going to choose 4 games and we're going to pick the winners. We're going to start with the New England Patriots at the Seattle Seahawks, where I'm going to actually say New England is going to win this game outright. I like the Patriots 26-24 in a close game.
Yeah, I like Seattle in this game. I think it will be close. I would pick Seattle 27-24.
All right, so pretty much the same score, just different teams.
So my pick for the week is going to be Dallas and Atlanta. As I mentioned earlier, I think it's a must-win for Dallas, especially being at home. Atlanta, I think, they're going to be good on offense. I know Dallas has question marks on defense, but I like Dallas in this game, and it being a home opener, I like them to win big. I'm going to take Dallas 27-20.
I'm going to actually go the other way on this game. I like the Falcons. I like them to win it outright. I have a really bad feeling about the Cowboys going into this game, thinking they may underestimate the Atlanta Falcons. So I have Atlanta winning this game 35-27. The next game I'm going to go ahead and pick is going to be the Carolina Panthers at the Tampa Bay Bucks. And while this line is really big, I do like Tampa to win this game. Now, if I'm laying money on it, I'm not taking the 9.5. But to win outright, I like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to win this game 24-20.
See, I think Carolina can win this game. I like what Teddy Bridgewater did last week. I like what Joe Brady's doing in this offense. With Christian McCaffrey in that backfield, it's just an added weapon. I think Carolina can upset Tampa in this game.
Interesting. So we'll see how that one goes. We're going to go with one more, and that's the New Orleans Saints at the Las Vegas Raiders. I am looking forward to this game. I think it's going to be a really good ball game. And I'm going to pick Vegas. I think the Raiders can win this game outright. I think it's going to be a lower scoring game than most expect. And I'm going to go with the Raiders 20-17.
I give you the Saints all day long. Especially if Michael Thomas plays. I like the Saints in this game. And if Michael Thomas plays, it may not even be close. I really like New Orleans in this game.
So can I get a waiver where if Michael Thomas does play, I can get like a refund if I have a receipt? Is that possible?
Yeah, you might need it.
No, you know what? I'm going to go with Vegas anyway. And even if Michael Thomas plays, he just catches 4-yard slant routes all day anyway. So what does it matter?
Of course.
Yeah, yeah. But he's better than Julio Jones, right?
Of course.
Now, Julio is a king, and we know it.
Yes.
So anyway, it's going to be a great week too. We're looking forward to all these games, and there are a couple of other games that we haven't mentioned just because really who cares. But one thing I'm going to say is I'm going to beg and I'm going to plead to Brian Flores to please start Tua Tagovailoa. Start him Thursday night, because if Gardner Minshew and Tua Tagovailoa play, I can't wait for that game. If it's Gardner Minshew against Fitzmagic, I'm going to watch the highlight reel. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. If Tua plays, it's a must-watch game, but I got no interest in watching Fitzpatrick and Minshew. For whatever reason, Minshew just does not interest me in the least. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's a team he plays for. I have no interest in watching him play.
So you're not intrigued by the fact that he, wears a bandana and has a porn stash and drives around the country in a 1970s weed van?
I love the porn stash. I love the bandana. I just don't think when I watch him play, just his play does not intrigue me. I don't like when I look at Breeze or I look at some of these other quarterbacks. Minshew is not in that class, and so it's hard to watch that.
I know what you mean, but I think it's time. Speaking of Miami and Tua, just let the kid go, man. I mean, you saw what Burrow is doing rather, and did last night, and in the modern day NFL, there are no more we sit our rookies on the bench for 1 or 2 or 3 years. You take the handcuffs off and you see what they have. These kids these days with these 7-on-7 camps and all this preparation, they have so many more snaps by the time they get to the NFL that they can pretty much hit the ground running. And I think now that Tua is cleared medically, has been cleared medically for a while now, I think you just throw him in there and see what you have. What do you think?
I don't think so. I've always liked the idea of keeping him on the bench. Let him learn. He's injury prone, especially with his history of injuries. I like him being on the bench and learning. I think he will be good when he does get his chance, but there's no need to rush him out there. This team is not going anywhere this year, and so I would be fine letting him sit a year or at least half the year and let him learn under Fitzpatrick.
You make some good points there, but I would still say, Brian Flores, please, for the love of God, start him just this once so I'll have something.
Yeah.
If we can watch Minshew and Tua, then that would be great. That would be like, that would be Burrow and Baker 2.0.
Yeah, so absolutely. It makes Thursday Night Football watchable.
It makes Thursday Night Football watchable. And you have to say, how great is the NFL now when we can honestly say that we enjoyed the Cleveland Browns and the Cincinnati Bengals because of these young quarterbacks.
Right.
And I'm still going to watch next week if it's Fitzpatrick playing for Miami, but, because I am intrigued by Gardner Minshew. But, these Thursday night matchups, they really need to get better, man. I mean, Miami and Jacksonville, who are you kidding?
I can't believe the NFL is not doing anything to address this. They're the ones that push so hard for Thursday night football, and this is the best you can do. I just find that hard to believe.
I do too, and the players hate Thursday games. Their bodies aren't ready. The preparation's not there. They do enjoy the 10, 11 days off afterwards, but it's really not, from a player safety thing, it's a ridiculous thing to ask them to play 3 days after they've just put their body through hell for 3.5 hours.
Yeah, I agree with that. And, if we're talking about Thursday night football, you also got to look at Monday night football. You got to address that too.
All good points for sure. Well, it's been a great show. I want to thank you so much for joining us. We're going to do more of these joint shows, and it's going to be a great weekend of football. Any closing thoughts from you?
No, I'm excited for this weekend. I am really excited to see what Tampa Bay does this weekend, coming off of last weekend. That's the way I'm just looking forward to just seeing how they respond. I still like Carolina to win that game, but I'm looking forward to seeing how Tampa, how they can put it together this week after coming off of last week.
Very cool. And for me, I'm going to say I want to see how Kyler Murray does again. He's playing Washington, not the greatest defense. It's a home game. I expect him to do well. I want to see if he can duplicate that performance, because if he does, then I think he's well on his way to being an elite quarterback in this league.
Yeah, I agree with that for sure. Kyler Murray is a stud, and Kingsbury's got that offense rolling, so it's going to be fun to watch him.
Awesome. We'd like to thank you all for taking the time to listen to this episode of Bending the Bracket. Don't forget to tune in Monday, where we're going to have an episode to reflect on all of these picks, and our newest segment, Dead Wrong, will debut. Thank you so much. Have a great weekend, everyone. And that's going to do it for us for this episode of Bending the Bracket. Thanks so much for joining us. Don't forget to subscribe to follow our latest content. You can also find us on Facebook or Twitter at Bending Sports. Have a great day.